The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered like a field of stars. Thousands of alien delegates sat in their glass thrones, their voices echoing through the air like an endless storm. Lights from distant suns poured through crystal walls, reflecting on banners of empires that had lasted for ages. It was a day of celebration, the anniversary of the Council's unity, but in one quiet corner stood a small group, humans. They were new to this gathering, wearing plain uniforms, their expressions calm but unreadable. Their representative, Ambassador Ryan Hale, stood tall among beings twice his size. His eyes moved slowly across the chamber, reading faces filled with pride, fear, and arrogance. When his turn came to speak, the lights dimmed. The chamber fell silent. Hale stepped forward and spoke in a steady voice. On behalf of humanity and the worlds of the Sol system, we thank the Council for recognizing our place among the stars. His words were clear and respectful, but before he could continue, soft laughter spread from the other side of the hall. It grew louder, into mocking roars. "Recognize you?" hissed a voice from the far podium. It was Lord Zarth of the Jaran Dominion, a tall, silver-scaled alien with glowing red eyes. "You come from a death world, a planet where even the air fights its people. You think the galaxy will accept you as equals?" More laughter followed. Another delegate joined in. "Primitive creatures, you burn your skies, destroy your seas, and then crawl into space like desperate animals." The human envoy stood still. He didn't respond, but the laughter continued. The Arakai representative waved a hand. "Let us not waste time with savages who mistake survival for civilization." Ryan Hale raised his eyes slowly. His voice didn't rise, but his words cut through the noise. "You call us savage because we survived what would kill you," he said softly. "You call us primitive because we do not kneel." The room fell silent again, not from respect, but from discomfort. Aliens shifted in their seats. Some sneered. Some looked away. But one alien, an old scholar from the Kalari Republic, watched the human with quiet interest. She had studied Earth's history. She knew the stories of its wars, its storms, its pain, and she whispered to herself, "They are not primitive. They are forged." Still, the meeting ended in mockery. The humans were denied trade rights, denied alliances, and their colonies were declared restricted zones. Humanity was left standing alone, surrounded by laughter and arrogance. Weeks later, far from the Council's bright halls, the HMS Vindicator drifted in silence beyond the edge of the Orion Arm. Captain Mira Solon stood at her command deck, staring at the holographic stars. Her dark eyes glowed faintly in the light of the console. "Report," she said. "Council patrols increasing along the border," her officer replied. "They've sent drones near the Mars line. They're watching us." Mira gave a small smile. "Let them watch." She turned toward the great window, watching Earth's light shimmer faintly in the distance. It was beautiful, blue and alive, but it was also alone. "They think we're weak," she said quietly. "They think the word primitive will break us. Let's show them what that word means." Her crew said nothing. They didn't need to. Every officer on that ship carried the same wound, the same memory of insult. Humanity had been laughed at for the last time. Across the galaxy, whispers began. Entire alien patrols were going missing near human borders. The Council called it rumor. Pirates, they said. Malfunctions, space storms. But the numbers grew. A fleet of 20 Jaran ships vanished without sending a single distress call. A core system supply convoy disappeared into silence. Even the Tharix Empire, known for their scanners and intelligence networks, couldn't explain it. Still, no one believed it could be humans, until one day every network in the Council's communication grid flickered. Screens went black, then a single symbol appeared, a silver planet surrounded by fire. "Earth," a voice followed, calm and cold. You called us primitive. We call you extinct. The message lasted only 6 seconds before vanishing. No source was found, but every captain, every soldier, every diplomat who saw it felt the same chill in their bones. The laughter stopped. In the halls of the Jaran Dominion, Lord Zarth slammed his clawed fist against his throne. "Find them!" he shouted. "Find those Deathworlders and erase them!" But his generals hesitated. They had seen the reports, fragments of destroyed fleets, ships reduced to dust, signatures of weapons that should not exist. Still, Zarth's pride refused to die. He ordered his entire First Armada to move toward human space. 1,000 ships lit the void, their engines like suns. From her warship, Mira Solin watched the incoming storm. The enemy fleet was massive, overwhelming by any measure. But humanity had learned to fight against odds long before they had ships. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "No transmission, no warnings." The HMS Vindicator powered up. Hundreds of dark warships emerged from the shadow of gas clouds, engines glowing blue. Humanity's fleet had been silent for decades, hidden and waiting. Now the Deathworlders were awake. Mira's voice echoed through every ship. For every insult, for every life lost, for every world they mocked, we rise. And as the stars around them flickered, the first human missiles ignited. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous thing in existence wasn't hatred. It was a species that refused to kneel. In the dark reaches beyond the Orion Arm, space was silent. But silence, as every Deathworlder knew, was never peace. It was the calm before something greater. The HMS Vindicator glided through that silence like a ghost of steel and light. Inside, Captain Mira Solin stood before the command table, her fingers tracing the glowing star maps. Dozens of red marks blinked across the display, enemy fleets closing in. Jaran Armada, 1,000 ships, her tactical officer said. "They'll cross the line of Sol in 8 hours. Mira didn't flinch. "They're faster than I expected." Her second-in-command, Commander Ryan O'Malley, leaned against the console, his jaw tight. "The Council thinks they can scare us into submission. They still believe we're the same people who begged for treaties." Mira looked up. "We never begged. We asked." They laughed. For a long moment no one spoke. The crew stared at her, men and women born from Earth's broken centuries, the survivors of endless trials. They were miners from Mars, engineers from Luna, colonists from Titan. Every one of them carried generations of human endurance in their veins. Mira finally said, "Open channel to Earth Command." A hologram flickered to life. Admiral Sorin, grey-haired, eyes sharp as winter frost. "Report, Captain." "The Jarans are moving," Mira said. "We estimate full assault. They think we're alone." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Good. Let them think that." He turned slightly, and the background behind him shifted, rows of colossal warships resting within a hollowed moon. Their metallic hulls gleamed under artificial sunlight, each one bearing the insignia of the Sol Defense Network. Mira's breath caught. She had heard rumors, but to see them, the Titan-class dreadnoughts, the Leviathan carriers, and the Seraphim battlecruisers, humanity's secret fleet. "How long?" she whispered. "Ready now," Sorin said. "Decades of silence ends today. The Council thought we were fractured. They never knew we were building beneath their eyes." He paused. "You will command the spearhead, Captain Solin. The fleet will move on your signal." Mira saluted. "Understood, sir." The transmission faded, and the crew exchanged quiet looks. For a long time, humanity had lived with humiliation, barred from trade, mocked in council archives, painted as savages unworthy of the stars. But those years were over. "Sound the awakening," Mira ordered. Throughout the Sol system, alarms echoed in hidden stations buried beneath moons and asteroids. Massive silos opened on Mars, revealing dormant warships long hidden beneath the red dust. From Europa's Frozen oceans rose, submarines turned into space vessels, their hulls glimmering like ice. Earth itself trembled as orbital rings came alive. The Aegis fleet, humanity's shield, activated for the first time in history. On the dark side of the moon, engineers cheered as they watched ancient engines ignite. Vessels that had slept for 50 years roared to life. One message spread across all human frequencies: awaken, Deathworlders. The stars have mocked us long enough. Captain Mira walked to the main window. The stars outside looked calm, unaware of the storm to come. She remembered her grandfather's words, a veteran of the early colonial wars. Never fear the dark, Mira. Fear those who think they own the light. She smiled faintly. Grandfather, you'd be proud today. Her ship ARI-9 spoke softly. Captain, fleet activation confirmed. Estimated 1,172 ships online and combat ready. Mira exhaled. Then it begins. Ryan stepped forward. Orders. Signal the outer patrols to stand down. We'll let the Jarans come closer. They need to see Earth before they die. He grinned. You want them to see what they called primitive? Yes, she said. I want them to see what evolution looks like when it refuses to bow. Hours passed. The alien fleet entered the Sol boundary, their scanners sweeping across empty space. The Jaran commander, Admiral Vrook, leaned back in his throne of steel. Still no resistance? He asked. None, sir, replied his sensor officer. Human colonies show minimal activity. Their defense systems are inactive. Vrook bared his teeth. Pathetic! They hide like vermin. He raised his hand. Prepare orbital bombardment. Begin with Mars. But before his command could echo through the fleet, the stars behind them began to move. At first, it looked like a storm, small dots appearing one by one, then thousands. The entire void lit up with blue light as human ships decloaked, the Jaran bridge filled with alarm sirens, multiple contacts, unknown energy readings, too fast to track. Impossible, Vrook shouted. Their technology cannot... The rest of his words vanished in fire. From the command deck of the Vindicator, Mira watched the Jaran fleet crumble. Her ships moved with perfect coordination. No arrogance, no hesitation. They didn't shout. They didn't mock. Each human ship fired once, then moved on, efficient as hunters in the dark. Plasma rounds pierced through enemy shields. Railguns shattered cruisers into glowing fragments. A single dreadnought, the HMS Archangel, unleashed its Nova Lance, a beam of condensed energy that sliced through 3 battleships in one shot. The Jarans tried to retreat, but their drives overloaded under the shockwave. In 10 minutes, the 1,000-ship armada was gone. Mira closed her eyes. Status? All enemy signals lost, Ryan said. 0 human casualties. The bridge was silent. No one cheered. No one celebrated. The victory felt heavy, not triumph, but truth. Mira whispered. They wanted to see what primitives could do. Now they've seen. She looked toward Earth, a glowing blue jewel in the darkness. Send a message to the Council, she said quietly. Just 3 words. Ryan nodded, already typing. What words, Captain? Mira's lips curved into a cold smile. Humanity has awakened. The transmission left the system like a spark in a storm. And across the galaxy, every empire that had mocked Earth turned its eyes toward the small blue world and felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. The galaxy burned with whispers. The Jaran Dominion's proud first armada, 1,000, ships strong, had vanished in a single day. No distress signals, no survivors, just silence. At first, the Galactic Council refused to believe it. It's impossible, they said. Humans don't have the power. But evidence didn't lie. Fragments of Jaran hulls drifted through the void, melted and broken, carrying the same scorch marks. Human plasma signatures. The galaxy finally understood. Humanity was no longer the weak voice in the Council's corner. They had become something else, something terrifying. On the bridge of the HMS Vindicator, Captain Mira Solon stood quietly as the stars outside flickered. Her reflection stared back from the glass, calm, steady, but heavy with thought. Commander Ryan approached. Reports are coming in. The Council is panicking. They're calling for emergency talks. Mira's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. Talks? After centuries of silence, now they want to talk? Ryan nodded. They're afraid. Mira finally turned. Good. Let them be. She walked to the central display, where the holographic image of the Jaran system flickered. Set course, she ordered. We finish what they started. Across human space, the Aegis fleet moved like a storm. Hundreds of warships crossed the Black Ocean, their drives glowing blue. The void rippled as they passed through jump gates built in secret decades ago. Each ship carried a name from Earth's history. Vindicator, Yamato, Archangel, Invictus, Victory. Names that meant survival. Names that meant war. The Jaran home system appeared ahead, a bright yellow sun surrounded by 7 worlds. The capital, Jara Prime, shimmered with city lights and orbital fortresses. For centuries it had stood untouched, the heart of arrogance and pride. Now it was humanity's target. Inside the Jaran command palace, panic had replaced pride. Lord Zarth shouted at his generals, his scaled face red with fury. Activate the planetary shields. Bring every ship home. Already done, my lord, said the defense officer, trembling. But they're here. What? The windows behind them darkened. Zarth turned slowly and saw the sky fill with light. Thousands of human ships had entered orbit, blocking the sun. They came through the outer defenses. The officer screamed. Our satellites didn't detect them. A bright flash cut his words short. The entire defense grid overloaded, collapsing in seconds. Zarth stared at the hologram. Every fortress he had built was falling. Every warship he trusted was exploding into dust. From the Vindicator's bridge, Mira watched the destruction unfold. Her voice remained calm. Target only military zones. Civilian areas are off limits, Ryan nodded. Understood. Missiles launched like shooting stars. Railguns fired invisible slugs faster than light. The Jaran fleet tried to fight back, but their systems couldn't track the human ships. They fired into empty space, striking nothing but shadows. Then, the Archangel moved into position. Its main cannon charged, glowing like a small sun. Fire. A beam of white plasma cut across the sky. In one strike, it split a Jaran battleship in half and tore through 2 more behind it. The explosion painted the clouds orange and red. 3 capital ships destroyed, Rian reported. Mira's tone never changed. Continue, the crew obeyed. No celebration, no cheers, only focus. They were not fighting for pride. They were fighting for memory, for every insult, every scar humanity carried from the centuries before. Hours later, the Jaran capital lay in ruins. Smoke rose from the shattered cities. The once proud fleets were now debris fields orbiting their dying world. On the surface, Lord Zarth stood among the flames of his palace, staring at the sky. He saw human ships blotting out the stars and fell to his knees. How? He whispered. How can they be this strong? An answer came through the static of his comlink, a human transmission. It was Captain Mira's voice, calm, clear, unshaken. We were born on a death world, Lord Zarth. Every day we fought to live. You mocked us for surviving. Now you will remember why. The message ended. Zarth screamed into the wind, but there was no one left to hear. In the council hall, panic turned to chaos. Alien ambassadors shouted across the chamber, "The Jarans are gone! They'll come for us next. We must unite against them." But no one could agree. Old rivalries burned too deep. Empires blamed each other. Fear ruled every word. Only one voice remained calm, Lyra of the Kalari Republic. She stood and faced the council. "You brought this on yourselves," she said softly. "You called them beasts, but you never asked how beasts survive." Her words fell heavy in the silent hall. Back aboard the Vindicator, Mira watched the Jaran world fade behind them. Ryan spoke quietly. "It's done. Their fleets are gone. The system is crippled," Mira nodded. "Then we move on." "Captain," he hesitated. "Do we keep doing this? One empire after another? Where does it end?" Mira's gaze stayed on the stars. It ends when they stop looking down on us. The hum of the ship filled the air. Outside, space stretched endlessly, a sea of light and darkness. Mira whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. We didn't start this war. We just stopped apologizing for surviving. The stars reflected in her eyes. Cold, bright, endless, and far away, in hidden corners of the galaxy, other empires began to prepare. The Deathworlders had awakened, and the universe was next. The Galactic Council Hall, once the symbol of order and pride, now echoed with fear. Where music and speeches once filled the air, only alarms and shouting remained. Ambassadors from hundreds of worlds screamed over one another, their translator devices flickering with static. The Jaran Dominion is gone, shouted one. Their worlds are burning. Who can fight them? Cried another. Humans have weapons we've never seen. They must have help. No species could build that alone. In the center of the chamber, the Grand Speaker of the Council, a tall, blue-skinned being named Vel of the Core Systems, struck his staff against the floor. Silence! He commanded. The voices died down, but the fear did not. Vel looked across the hall. We face a threat unlike any other. The humans have crossed the line between defense and destruction. A Kalari representative, Lyra, stood from her seat. Her voice was calm, almost sorrowful. They crossed no line, Speaker. We drew it around them and mocked them for trying to breathe. The hall fell quiet. Vel's eyes narrowed. Are you defending them? I'm warning you, Lyra said. You call them Deathworlders as if it's an insult. But you forget what that means. They survived a planet that kills its own. If their world forged them to endure such pain, what will a galactic war do to them? A Tharix general slammed his clawed hand on the table. Then we destroy their world before they destroy ours. Gasps spread through the chamber. Even Vel looked unsettled. You would burn an entire species home, he asked. Yes, the general growled. They burned the Jarans. They'll come for us next. But Lyra shook her head. No, they don't conquer for pleasure. They strike for memory. While the council argued, a shadow watched them from afar, through hidden surveillance drones orbiting the core star. On the HMS Vindicator, Captain Mira Solon observed the scene through the ship's long-range intelligence feed. She listened to their panic in silence. Every word of fear reached her like music. Rian stood beside her, his arms crossed. They still don't understand, do they? Mira smiled faintly. No, they never do. They think fear will stop us. Will it? He asked quietly. She looked out at the swirling galaxies. Fear never stopped humans. It only taught us when to strike. The Council eventually formed a plan, or tried to. A coalition of 10 major species promised to build a peace armada, a combined fleet large enough to confront the Deathworlders. But even as they spoke, reports kept arriving. Human forces had already advanced into new sectors. Entire pirate zones surrendered voluntarily, preferring human protection over alien arrogance. On some worlds, alien civilians even raised the human flag, a simple blue circle with silver wings, saying it represented freedom from fear. The Council called it propaganda. But deep down, they knew the truth. Humanity had changed the rules of the galaxy. In the lower levels of the Council Hall, Lyra walked alone through empty corridors. Her people, the Kalari, were known for peace and study. They had no great armies, no empire to protect them. Yet she couldn't stop thinking about the humans. When she closed her eyes, she saw Earth, a blue world of storms and sunlight. A place where life fought every day to survive, and still found beauty in the struggle. She whispered to herself, if we had lived there, maybe we would understand them better. Her communicator beeped softly. Message from unknown source, it said. Lyra hesitated before opening it. The screen displayed only a single sentence. You still have a choice. Don't stand with those who burned us. The message vanished instantly. No trace, but Lyra's heart pounded. She knew that voice. It was human. Meanwhile, in the Council's war chambers, Vel met secretly with the Tharix general and 2 others. They stood before a holographic map of the Sol system. The Deathworlders have built something we can't match, said Vel quietly. If we cannot beat them with strength, we'll use deception, the Thoric's general hissed. You mean target Earth? Vel nodded slowly. If their world falls, their unity will break. A being who has lost its home cannot keep fighting forever. He pointed at the hologram. We have a weapon, Project Oblivion, a star-killer warhead. It was banned centuries ago, but desperate times. The others exchanged nervous looks. That weapon could destroy an entire system. One protested. Vel's expression was cold. Then we will remind humanity that the galaxy decides who survives. Far from the core, Mira received intercepted data from her spies. When she read it, her face darkened. Rian noticed immediately.
What is it?
They're coming for Earth, she said. For the first time since the war began, Mira's voice trembled slightly. They're planning to destroy everything. Ryan clenched his fists. Then we stop them first. Mira looked up, her eyes fierce. No, we don't stop them. We end them. She turned toward her crew. Prepare the fleet. Activate dark space relays. We're taking the war to the core. Every officer on the bridge stood at attention. No one hesitated. No one questioned. They all knew what was coming. As the Vindicator accelerated into the void, its engines left trails of blue fire. Mira stared ahead, her reflection in the glass merging with the stars. Primitive, she whispered. That's what they called us. But only those who forget pain call survival primitive. She closed her eyes for a moment, then spoke softly to her AI. Record a message for the Council, she said. Ready, the AI replied. Mira's voice hardened. You mocked the world that raised us. Now you will meet the fire it forged. The transmission was sent through subspace, straight into the heart of the Council's communication grid. When it reached the chamber, every screen flickered. Every light dimmed. And for the second time in history, the galaxy heard the voice of the Deathworlders. We are coming. The human fleet raced through the black between galaxies. No songs, no banners, only the low hum of engines and the heavy beat of purpose. The stars blurred into lines as jump drives screamed through dark space. Captain Mira Solon stood on the bridge of the Vindicator, watching the core star grow brighter ahead. Behind her trailed thousands of human warships, each one carrying the same silent promise. They were not chasing glory. They were chasing justice. Rian O'Malley studied the hologram beside her. Council fleets gathering at the core. Every major empire has joined. Over 10,000 ships. Mira's face didn't move. Let them come, Ryan frowned. We're outnumbered. Mira turned toward him, her voice calm but sharp. So were we the day we were born. In the Council's war room, panic had turned into determination. Speaker Vel stood before the Allied commanders. His tone was iron. The humans approach. We hold here. Their fleet will break against our line, General Thorix, armored in silver, hissed. And if it doesn't? Vel's eyes hardened. Then we unleash Project Oblivion. No one dared reply. They all knew what that meant, detonating a warhead capable of collapsing a star. If used near Earth's sun, it would end humanity forever. But it would also scar the galaxy. Lyra of Kalari stepped forward, trembling. Speaker, you can't. If you destroy their sun, you destroy millions of innocent lives, children, colonies. Vel cut her off. You speak of innocence after they erased the Jarans? Lyra shook her head. They didn't erase them out of hate. They erased arrogance. Vel turned away coldly. History is written by survivors, and after today, humans will not be among them. The two fleets met near the core star. It was not a battle. It was an apocalypse painted in light. Thousands of alien ships formed a shining wall across the void. Their energy fields glowed like a sunrise. Opposite them, the human fleet floated in silence, dark hulls absorbing every reflection, like shadows ready to consume the light. Mira raised her hand. Open channel. Across both armadas, her voice echoed. This war began with words. You called us primitive. You called us violent. You called us less. But it was not violence that brought us here. It was your laughter. Her words cut through the static. No reply came. Only the hum of weapons charging. She lowered her hand. Fire, the void erupted. Human plasma lances pierced through shields the Council believed indestructible. Alien beams crossed the dark, tearing through cruisers and frigates alike. Ships exploded like dying stars, scattering debris across the battlefield. Mira gripped the rail as her ship shook. "Status! Shields at 60. Forward guns locked!" "Keep firing," she said. "No retreat." Her voice stayed steady, even as flames burst across the bridge. Through the chaos, Ryan shouted, "We're breaking their left flank." Mira smiled faintly. "Good. Push harder." But deep inside her, a thought burned. How many would die before the galaxy finally understood? Hours passed. The battle stretched endlessly. The core armada began to fall apart. All their unity and pride cracked under the relentless storm of human precision. Vel watched from the council station in orbit, his hands trembling. "How are they doing this?" he whispered. "They have fewer ships, less power. How are they winning?" Lyra stood behind him, her eyes reflecting the explosions outside. "Because they don't fight to rule," she said softly. "They fight to remember." Vel turned sharply. "What do you know of war?" "I know fear," she replied. "And I see it in you now." On the Vindicator, alarms screamed. Enemy reinforcements inbound, 20 carriers. Mira's voice rose over the noise. "Call the Leviathans." From the dark side of the nebula, 3 colossal dreadnoughts emerged. Each one was the size of a moon. Their cannons glowed white-hot. Leviathans fire. The sky turned to daylight. Beams of burning plasma crossed space, melting through entire enemy lines. When the light faded, half the Council's fleet was gone, but the victory carried a cost. The Vindicator itself was heavily damaged. Fires burned along its spine. "Evac pods offline," shouted a technician. Rian turned to Mira. "We need to fall back." She shook her head. "Not yet." "The core command ship is still standing." He grabbed her arm. "If we stay, we die." She met his eyes. "If we run, Earth dies." In that moment, the Council made its final move. Vel activated the secret code for Project Oblivion. Far away, hidden within the core's defense fleet, a dark missile separated from its carrier. Its surface shimmered like a black sun. Its destination, Earth's star. Lyra saw the signal flash on the screen. Her blood ran cold. "No!" "He didn't." Vel's expression was grim. "It ends now." She slammed her hand into the control panel, disabling the safety locks. "If you kill them, you kill us all." Guards rushed forward, but she shouted one command: "Override transmission to all frequencies." Her voice cut across the battle. Project Oblivion launched. "They're targeting the human sun." Mira heard it instantly. Her heart stopped. "They're going for Sol." Ryan looked at her in shock. "We can't reach it in time." Mira's mind raced. Then quietly, "We don't have to." She turned to her communications officer. "Send message to all ships, intercept code Delta 9. Sacrifice formation." Ryan stared. "That will cost us." "Do it." Hundreds of human ships broke from the main line and vanished into subspace. They didn't hesitate. They didn't question. Each captain knew what the code meant. Moments later, near Earth's star, the black missile entered range, followed by a swarm of glowing trails. The Deathworlders arrived. They rammed their ships into the missile's course, detonating in perfect sequence. The blast consumed them all, humans and weapon together. From the bridge of the Vindicator, Mira watched the sensor data fade. Her eyes filled with light from the dying signal. "Mission complete," said the AI softly. Ryan's voice broke. "We lost them all." Mira closed her eyes. They saved everything. In the council chamber, silence fell as the warhead's signal vanished. Vel slumped into his chair, pale and speechless. Lyra stared at the dark screen, tears in her eyes. "They stopped it," she whispered. "Even knowing it would kill them, they stopped it." Vel's voice was barely a whisper. "Then perhaps they aren't monsters after all." Lyra turned to him sharply. "No, they never were." Back in deep space, the Vindicator drifted among the remains of the battle. Humanity had survived, but at a cost too heavy to count. Mira stood silently, staring at the wreckage of friend and foe alike. Ryan approached. "What now, Captain?" She looked toward the distant glow of Earth's sun. "Now we remember them," her voice softened. "We wanted respect. But respect without mercy becomes another form of arrogance." She paused. It's time the galaxy learns both. The ship turned slowly toward home, engines glowing faint blue. The war was not over, but something inside humanity had changed. For the first time since the stars began to burn, the Deathworlders had learned the true price of survival. The war was over, but silence had never felt so heavy. The stars around the core burned faintly, their light dimmed by the ash of battle. Where once fleets filled the void, now only wreckage drifted, fragments of steel and memory. Among the ruins, one ship still moved, the HMS Vindicator. Its hull was scarred and blackened, half its lights gone, yet its engines still glowed, steady, defiant, alive. Captain Mira Solen stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic field. The human fleet had lost thousands of ships. Millions were gone, but Earth still lived. The sun still burned, and that was enough. Commander Rion stepped beside her. His uniform was torn, face marked with ash. "The Council sent another transmission," he said quietly. They want to talk." Mira didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the stars, those cold witnesses to everything humanity had endured. After a long moment, she said softly, "At last, they speak when their guns are silent." The message from the Council played in the air. It was Speaker Vel, his voice shaken and hollow. "To the people of Earth. To Captain Mira Solen, we request peace talks. The galaxy cannot bear another war. The Council recognizes humanity's strength, its courage, and its right to exist among the stars." Rian waited for Mira's response, but she said nothing. He finally asked, "Will we forgive them?" Mira smiled sadly. "Forgiveness isn't given through words. Ryan, it's shown through what comes next." 3 days later, the Vindicator entered orbit around the core world, the same world where years ago humanity had been mocked. Now the Council Hall stood surrounded by human ships, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The delegates gathered nervously inside the Grand Chamber. No laughter filled it now, only silence, heavy with respect and fear. When Captain Mira entered, every alien rose. Her uniform was simple, her hair tied back, her eyes sharp and steady. She walked to the center of the hall, the very spot where humanity had once been humiliated. Vel stood to greet her. "Captain Solen," he said softly, "you have won this war. The galaxy is yours to command." Mira looked around the vast chamber. "No," she said, "we did not fight to rule. We fought to be heard." Her words echoed across the hall, filling every corner like a slow wave. Lyra of Kalari stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You start Project Oblivion," she said. "You saved not only your world but ours." Mira nodded. "We saved what mattered. But don't mistake mercy for weakness. We remember every life taken, on both sides." Vel lowered his head. "Then what will humanity do now?" Mira's gaze turned toward the great window overlooking the stars. "We will rebuild," she said, "but differently. The galaxy must change, or it will destroy itself again." After the meeting, as peace terms were drawn, small things began to change. Human engineers worked beside alien scientists. Fleets that once fought each other now carried aid to broken worlds. The war had ended, but its scars ran deep. And yet, through those scars, something began to grow. Stories spread across the colonies. Stories of human soldiers who protected alien civilians. Of captains who spared surrendering fleets. Of medics who treated the wounded from both sides. The galaxy began to whisper a new word: respect. And somewhere in those whispers, the old word, primitive, died quietly. Weeks later, Mira returned to Earth. Her ship descended through white clouds, the blue planet shining below. The oceans shimmered like silver glass. The continents glowed with light. She stood on the landing deck as the ramp lowered. Wind brushed against her face, warm, familiar, alive. People gathered around the port to welcome the survivors. Some cried. Some saluted. Some just stood silently, unable to believe they had won. Mira walked alone to the edge of the sea. The water reflected the sky, endless, shifting, free. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe. Rayan approached quietly. "You should rest, Captain." She smiled faintly. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The waves," she said. After all the noise, they sound like forgiveness. He looked at her, puzzled but moved. And if the council breaks its peace again? She turned toward the horizon. Then they'll remember what the sea taught us, that nothing holds back a storm forever. Months passed. Humanity rebuilt its worlds and its name. The term Deathworlder was no longer used as an insult. It became a symbol, carved into medals, etched on walls, whispered by children learning history. Deathworlders, those who endured the impossible and still found mercy in victory. The Galactic Council signed the new accord, declaring equality for all member species. No more forbidden zones, no more mockery, no more exile. Lyra was appointed as the first non-human ambassador to Earth. She stood beside Mira as the document was signed, smiling softly. "You changed them," she said. Mira shook her head. "No, we reminded them what survival looks like." That night, under the stars, Mira stood alone on a cliff overlooking the ocean. She thought of all those who never came home, the brave crews who had flown into the sun to stop the Council's weapon. Their names were carved into the stone memorial below her feet. She whispered to the wind, "You didn't die for vengeance. You died for understanding." The waves answered in a low, steady rhythm. Then she looked up, and in the distance, a faint light streaked across the sky, the first new human ship launching toward deep space. Rian's voice came from behind her. "Explorers again?" Mira nodded. "Always." "That's who we are," he smiled. "And what should we call this new era?" She looked back at the horizon, where the sun met the sea, and said softly, "The age of the Deathworlders." As the ship disappeared into the stars, the galaxy carried their legend. They were no longer feared for their violence, but respected for their will. And though the Council still whispered about the humans' strange resilience, none dared to laugh again, because every world now knew a single truth, carved in silence, written in fire, and sealed in memory. Never mistake kindness for weakness, for even the gentlest world can burn, and even the humblest species can rise to rule the stars.